Hey there, Hoops Tragics! Before we kick off this episode of Aussie Hoopla, be sure to check out our exclusive range of NBL and NBA t-shirts on our website, AussieHoopla.com. Buying a t-shirt helps us cover our website and podcasting costs and continue to promote Aussie Hoops. Now, let's kick off this episode by bringing on the host of Aussie Hoopla, Dan Boyce.
The Minnesota Timberwolves select Luke Longley from the University of New Mexico.
And the Tigers, for the first time in history, have won the NBL title. Look at the Gaze family. Lindsay and Andrew. Andrew just tears streaming down the face.
Now Barkley and Shane Heal at midcourt. Separated by the official.
Once described as the worst sporting team in Australia, well, they've sent the critics away and have captured the National Basketball League Grand Final in 2003.
Get off. And Gaze and Carter go down very hard. And Carter staring down at Gaze. Shane Heal pushes Carter, and this is a backward start.
With the first pick in the 2005 NBA draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select Andrew Bogut from Australia and the University of Utah.
Perth Wildcats, 2015-2016 NBL champions.
Simmons from Australia. At various points in his career, he's been compared in terms of skills to a LeBron James type of player doing that 6 or 10. Now goes on to Simmons as he makes his way to greet Adam Silver.
Hey everybody, welcome back, and thanks for downloading another episode of Australia's longest-running basketball podcast, Aussie Hoopla. As always, you're listening to the host of Aussie Hoopla, Dan Boyce, and thanks to dunk.com.au, who've been leading the way in providing basketball teams in Australia with custom-designed uniforms for over 15 years, and the place where you should think about getting your next set of basketball uniforms. Visit dunk.com.au to find out more. We're joined by former Brisbane Bullets superstar, Andre Moore. Thanks so much for joining us, Dre.
Thank you. How are you, Dan?
Man, I'm good. It's awesome to have you back on the show, Dre. Obviously, we had you on the podcast a couple of years ago, and we went through your career in the NBA, as well as here in Australia with the Brisbane Bullets, Hobart Devils, and the Cairns Taipans, where you actually scored the first ever basket for the team. If you want to download and listen to that one, you can find it in our archives. Just search for Andre Moore on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or however you listen to your podcast these days. And I'm excited to talk hoops with you again. But before we jump into that, one of the main reasons I got you on the show is because I don't know how, why, or the details, but Under Armour, Adidas, Reebok, Nike, they all better watch out because at the ripe old age of 57, you've come to the market with your own signature basketball shoe, Dre. How does all this happen to a man who's been out of the game for the past 20 years?
It's just surreal. This is the most surreal thing ever, man. I've had real moments in my life, meeting, playing with Dr. J. No, not playing with Dr. J, but being involved in a TV show with Dr. J here in Brisbane, many years ago. Meeting my dad for the first time when I was 19 years old, and that experience, and all my kids, being born, all 8 of them, because I've been very busy on and off the court over the years. But to be able to have a shoe, it all came about 7 months ago when a lovely lady here in Brisbane named Kathleen Cameron I think I saw a post of hers. She was about her shoe company called Basilica, and she I mentioned to her something about the fact that I asked her. Did those particular shoes come in a size 17? Just being a jest, always making fun of my shoes. A lot of my shoes usually come, with a pair of oars, and that's what everybody used to say.
Not many people have size 17 feet, but the ones that do know that even if you've got probably over a size 14 size foot, it's very hard to get shoes.
That's so true, yeah. So she, Kathleen, proposed to me the idea of possibly having my own signature shoe because I think she must have been a fan back in the day of mine or knew of me from my profile from basketball here in Brisbane, and she had this fledgling company called Basilica, which is tied into the Basilica cathedrals in Rome, where the shoes are made. They're made in Italy.
Yeah.
And she brought this idea to me about the possibility, and we worked on this idea, with the design and everything, and the inspiration that I gave her, the shoes that I was most inspired by, even though I never had a pair of them, was the Jordan 11s.
Okay.
Which had that patent leather on them. So if you notice on my shoes, they have that beautiful patent leather on the front and the back, which I wanted to contribute to the design.
These are the very well-known Michael Jordan Space Jam shoes, aren't they? The Jordan 11s, right?
Right. The Space Jam model, exactly. Yeah, it's a shoe I've always looked at that. It could serve obviously the purpose of on a basketball court, playing in a playing shoe, but also could be very, very high fashion. You can almost to the point where you can almost wear a tuxedo with it.
Yeah.
Which I think I've heard. I've seen a few people who get married on basketball courts back home, and they wore those shoes as a footwear. But that was the whole idea behind it. But this shoe that I have is called the A-Train, and it's A-Train is obviously it was a famous nickname by a guy by the name of Artis Gilmore, who played for the Bulls.
That's right.
Back in the late 70s, early 80s, and all that. But it's also very first of all known for in Chicago. Our train line has two major train lines: the A train and the B line.
Yep.
The A train is usually the red sort of coloring on that particular train, and then the B line is the green coloring. So that's where the A train actually comes from. That actual term. So, and then B, of course, my name started with the letter A, and the way I used to, play on the court, where I would try to, run down the court like a runaway locomotive, to get a pass from a Derek Rucker or a Tim Hardaway, who I played with back in the early days, or Carl Golston, who I played with, back in college. Three wonderful guards. I was, getting those passes on that lane like a locomotive train. A train was just a very appropriate name.
Yeah, for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah, so it's a beautifully made shoe, made in Italy. I'm competing more with the Pradas and Gucci's of the world as opposed to the Michael Jordans or the Kawhi Leonard with his line of New Balance and all that.
Yeah,
my shoes more in that little lane. I like to get up there with the Kanye West, Yeezys as well too. That type of lane, which is very lofty sort of. Those are lofty sort of aspirations, but who knows? Who knows? If you think about something and dream it, maybe it can come true. So.
Like, if anyone wants to check these shoes out, a couple of places you can do it. basilicashoes.com is the website, but also on your social media, Big Feet Basketball Experience. We should maybe give that a mention as well, because I know that you're doing some fantastic things to do with, juvenile detention centres and things like that, Dre. But Big Feet Basketball Experience up there in Brisbane, you can check it out, and it's a bit of information there on the shoes as well. But I think last time we had you on the show, Dre, we were talking about what you're doing there with Big Feet. But for those that weren't listening, a little bit of a summary on, I guess, some of the fantastic things you do in the community. That'd be great to hear.
Yeah, Big Feet started way back in the early 90s. It was originally a program that was called, which was through the Queensland Teachers Credit Union. They approached me after my first year with the Bullets. I won an award called the Vince Hickey Memorial Award, which is Vince Hickey was a gentleman who helped get basketball started in Queensland. He was very, very big in his community. And as a result, the club started this perpetual award for any player who exuded his sort of way of doing things, with the community and all that. And I won that. After winning that award, a lot of companies in Brisbane approached me about being the face of their businesses, and I chose to align myself with the Queensland Teachers Credit Union because I've always found education to be very important in the community. So they built a program around me where I'm going to schools and do a talk on life skill issues, as well as teaching kids skills conditioning, basketball training, and that just took off. It took a whole new. It became took on a whole new meaning, for me as well. It's not just being a basketball player, but someone who does things that try to impact the community. So now I've taken that to the program to places like the Cape York region up in Queensland, where a lot of indigenous communities live, and indigenous people live. And I've also taken it to lots of schools, community groups, PCYCs, and just most recently, I'm working in the local youth detention center with a lot of the kids who've been incarcerated for various things. And the kids, it's so much talent in those centers as well too. And I try to counsel these kids and try to work with them to get them back on the right track for when they do leave.
Because sorry to cut you off, Dre, but when you're talking about talent in these kids, I know that your program does involve basketball, of course, but it's so much more than that. You're working with them on their own self-development and taking accountability, all those types of things. It's incredible what you do.
Exactly. All those things come to play. Accountability, being
self-discipline, self-worth, yeah.
Yes, and believe in themselves. Because, like I said, we were saying off the record, no child, no bad. We all come into this world innocent, and it's just the environments we find ourselves in. Our home life might not be the best. No one comes into this world a bad person. That's my belief. I mean, it's a fact, actually. So
there's no babies out there robbing and holding people up at gunpoint, is there, Dre?
Exactly. It's just when we get into certain environments, certain situations, family situations, things that lead people down the wrong path. And I'm not afraid to say I had one of my kids was one of those kids that was incarcerated, in the juvenile detention center, because he was hanging with the wrong kids, and he ended up doing it for the time, and he's come good now. I'm really, I tell his story to the kids in the detention center, and they, to serve as a message, a cautionary tale, but also a message of hope that you can't turn your life around, which my son did. So that's what it's all about.
Because I mean, coming from Chicago like you did, Dre, you're talking about these kids that you're working with now and what they've seen growing up. What were some of the worst things that you had to navigate growing up in Chicago?
Oh man, gang violence, gang recruitment, especially because I was a big kid for my age. The older kids would automatically assume that
You got NBA teams trying to draft you, Dre, but there's probably a few Chicago gangs trying to draft a big fella like you too, I would think.
They want to. And their draft tactics are a little bit more, more
a little bit more unrefined. Yeah, exactly.
Full on, than to say the least. Very, very much unrefined. But there was times where I remember one incident where I was coming home from basketball practice. I was in year 9, and me and one of my teammates on this train in Chicago that was an old rickety train. The lights were coming on and off on this train. It was, it was rattly and all that. And in some kind of way, in between the lights going on and off, this guy got his watch stolen. Somebody ripped his watch off. He automatically assumed it was us. So we get off the train, and he follows us downstairs to the lower level, and promptly pulls a gun out on us. We were like, we're 14, 16-year-old kids, And he's telling us, he's about to shoot us if we don't, come up with his watch. He's already assumed we have his watch and everything. And I remember how terrifying it was to even to have nobody can even fathom, having a gun, pointing in your direction. Your whole life kind of flashes before you. Luckily, the guy understood how, we were able to convince him that we didn't have his watch. And he told us to turn around and count to 50, I think it was, or he's going to shoot us. We started counting, and we got about to 25, 30 or whatever. We turned around, and the guy was gone. and we just kind of looked at each other and just like, whoa, we didn't speak to each other the rest of the trip, home. We were just in such shock, So that was one of the most terrifying experiences I had, growing up in Chicago.
I know eventually you'd get a scholarship to, well, firstly, the University of Illinois Chicago, and then eventually Loyola University.
Right. I had great guidance through my high school coach, who's no longer with us. He passed away shortly after I graduated. Mr. Bob Walters. He was very much a father figure to all of my teammates and I, and he taught us a lot about not just basketball, but all the things that a young man should be taught by a father figure, such as respect for women and respect for elders in general, all that type of stuff. So he was a great influence in my life. And then my mom was also a great. She was a great disciplinarian, tough on us. She was like mom. She was like a father and a mother, sort of figure for us. So she kept me on the right track as well. So I credit those two for putting me in the right track when it comes to life. So they helped me make that decision when it came to what school I wanted to go to afterwards, or just the fact that I wanted to go to college in the first place and get a free education. They were the ones who motivated the most. My mom and my coach there. I'm gonna say that same guy also coached Tim Hardaway, Senior.
Ah, of course, yeah, from Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, he was my point guard. When I was in year 12, he was in year 9. He was already a prodigy at that. He was a prodigy actually in grade 7. He was schooling grown men in grade 7. With that killer crossover.
Your time at university, obviously you were getting a good education, but on the court, you guys did very well as well. For those that aren't aware, being on that Loyola team, you guys reached the Sweet 16 in '85, and you went head to head with Patrick Ewing. That's pretty cool.
Yep. Well, my very first that same year, my very first college game was against the late great Wayman Tisdale. I was thrown to the wolves. That was my very first college game against Oklahoma when he was there. The same school that produced Ricky Grace and Mookie Blaylock.
That's true. Yeah.
That was Wayman Tisdale. I started the year in '85 against Wayman Tisdale and finished that year against Patrick Ewing in the Sweet 16. So it was played against John Koncak as well along that way with when he was with SMU. So that was a heck of a introduction to my college career. Sort of laid the foundation for my opportunities to go professionally later on down the track.
What type of guy were you like at college, Dre? Like, were you just focused on the basketball? Were you a bit of a partier? Like, were you studying, head down? Like, what was Andre Moore like in college?
All of the above. You just mentioned all of it. It was a juggling act. Juggling act. You're trying to have a social life.
Depended who was in the room.
Exactly. So you had to study. You had to study. We had study hall and everything. You try to have a little bit of a social life. You had to practice. You got to be up early in the morning for training. And then it was games. It was a whole juggling life. But it was the best years of my life was university because it was also carefree. There was no bills to be looking after. There was no that type of thing. None of the grown people stuff you had to deal with. Your main thing was just trying to stay in shape, physically and mentally and spiritually. That's all we had to do, and and life was going to be great for us. I always look back on my college career is a very, very fond memories. And as of lately, that school Loyola's been doing very well too with Porter Moser, the coach. He was the most recent coach with them. They've been to the Final Four, I think in 2018, which was the year also that I was inducted into the Loyola University of Chicago Hall of Fame, which was probably another great surreal moment as well too. In 2017, I get a call from the Loyola officials saying we want to induct you into the Hall of Fame. Can you come home in January? Which is the mid part of their season, and they were going to have a whole ceremony from not just myself but a couple other former Loyola alumni, and they were also celebrating that year the 100 years of basketball at the school, and they put together their what they call the all-century team, the top 25 players ever played at the school. So I actually made that team as well too. It was just a major year, 2018. So I went back in January and went through the whole ceremony. My family had a big party for me, and it was just great. You know, I got these beautiful awards, and my name is now my picture and my likeness is they have like a little hallway at the team's facility where they have all the inductees over the years, pictures of us, you know, and my picture is actually next to a very famous lady by the name of Sister Jean, who became a bit of a folklore heroine during Loyola's most recent runs. She's a very elderly lady. She just made 100 years old in August of this year, and she's been like a long-time supporter of the team. And she was inducted to the Hall of Fame, so my picture is right next to hers, which I'm very honored to have.
As you would have heard me at the start of the show, dunk.com.au are one of the very few Australian basketball uniform manufacturers and designers who make everything here locally. It doesn't come from China or anything like that. It's put together right here in Brisbane, in fact, which means that they can custom design any type of jersey that you want and have it in your mailbox ready to go within 3 weeks. If you check out Dunk Uniforms on Instagram, you can see all their recent designs, and then visit dunk.com.au to make your order. They've been in the game for 15 years, so if your team is in need of some fresh threads, this is where you need to go. And of course, it goes without saying that without their support, we wouldn't be able to keep bringing you these interviews with Australian basketball legends. So mention Aussie Hoopla sent you, check out dunk.com.au and get your team some new jerseys today. I mean, we all come to know you 1990, you were suiting up for the Brisbane Bullets and run up and down the court, but before then, you had a nice little stint in the NBA, a year there playing with, first drafted by Denver, and then a little bit of a stint with the Bucks. You came up against some pretty cool players then too. Tell us about that.
Oh yeah, that was during Pippen's era, because prior to that 1987 draft, which was the first pick of that draft was David Robinson, but he didn't end up playing.
He didn't play that year though. That's right. Yeah.
Right. He had 2 years left on his naval commitment, so he debuted in '89. But that draft, prior to that draft, the NBA Association invited the top 32 college players to go to Hawaii to play in what was like a pre-draft sort of audition for all the top 32 guys, and I was fortunate to be part of that group. And what they did, they divided a group up into the region that according to where you played college basketball at. So I was in the Midwest region, and on my team was a guy by the name of Scottie Pippen, who's been making a lot of noise lately with some of his...
Yeah, I was going to say, with his book coming out, he's making a lot of noise, and see if you had any thoughts on some of the comments he had there.
Yeah. Well, Scottie and I became really good friends during that tour during that what was called the Aloha Classic, which is a pre-draft. It was the last pre-draft audition for the tournament that they, all the audience was just all NBA general managers and coaches and everything, and that's what Denver saw me out there and decided that would be their draft pick. But Scottie and I became really, really close during that thing. He was just pretty much just a country boy from Arkansas that that was starting to make a little bit of noise in the league and in the draft circles. And I befriended him, and we became really good, pretty close. We actually competed in a dunk competition out there, which I got robbed on, I think. Scottie won the dunk competition just doing some really plain, just flying through the air, one-handed sort of stuff. And I was doing all this fancy stuff that I learned from, different guys in Chicago, putting the ball into my arms, kind of like my guy Sean Kemp used to do, the over the arm, under the arm sort of thing. You rub your hair sort of thing and dunk it. I was doing all type of stuff, and then he ended up winning the dunk competition. Everybody thought I got robbed, so but that's neither here nor there.
We're talking about Scotty and this book that he's got coming out. I mean, like, you've had a relationship with the man. You're also, Chicago Bulls man growing up in Chi-Town there. To hear some of this stuff that he's talking about, Phil Jackson being racist and, Michael Jordan, flip-flopping on him and all this type of stuff. Have you seen some of the quotes? Any thoughts on that stuff?
Oh, yeah. I've been watching that stuff closely on social media. He was on Dan Patrick show the other day. You saw the Dan Patrick interview. That
some of the things he's saying, it sounds like he's trying to sell all of his books in 24 hours. There's so many takes going on.
Yeah, but I think he's quite upset about how he was portrayed in the Last Dance documentary, which I don't understand why. Because everything that they said about him in the documentary, it actually happened. He didn't go back in the game. With 1 point some seconds on the game. That actually actually happened. For him to be upset, I just can't see Phil Jackson being racist. Which you never know what a person was going on, but I don't know about that.
Yeah, like some of the comments, like the ones that jumped out to me was stuff about how the whole thing with Steve Kerr hitting that last shot was all an orchestrated thing for the TV. Phil put Tony Kukoc into the game because he's a racist and wanted a white guy to shoot the last second shot. Like,
I mean, he's also spooking his new bourbon as well too. So a lot of people think he's been drinking too much of the product or something.
well, the documentary, The Last Dance, went on to sort of illustrate how he didn't have too much money for a lot of those years. He's trying to make it all back right now, from the sounds of it.
I know. And then he has some very public stuff with his missus, which I don't want to go into all that because that's fairly personal. I don't want to go into the man's family sort of stuff. But he's got a lot of things going on, like all of us. We all go through stuff, and he just happens to be lashing out, to the world, and feeling really bad about stuff. So I just wish him the best and everything,
But you did get to play against a few big names. There was a game there against the Utah Jazz in '87. You went on up against Stockton Malone, and I think I also saw they had Darryl Dawkins on the roster, which is pretty cool. You played against Adrian Branch in New Jersey. Like, he came out here in '92, and he just won a title with the Lakers, I think, at that time.
We were teammates with the Bullets.
Yeah. Connor Henry, I saw on the list as well. Connor Henry, who's now the coach at Adelaide. You played against him at Milwaukee, so...
Oh yeah, and then we had on my very own Denver Nuggets team, we had Lafayette Lever, Fat Lever, who was our star player at the time. I actually just found I was just digging through some old photos and everything, and I found a Sports Illustrated article that we actually did. And it was a picture of us holding him. It was an article about him. And it was a picture of all of us Denver Nuggets players holding him, like he's like laying across all of our arms, sort of thing. Yeah. And I'll probably post that in the coming days because it's pretty cool picture. But he was, with Alex Ennis was our sort of fading star during that time. Great Alex English, who was all-star.
I think this was there as well. And in the Bucks, you had Sidney Moncrief. He doesn't get mentioned much these days, but one of the greatest guards in NBA history.
Yeah, Terry Cummings, who also went to my school as well too. Went to Carver High School. Terry Cummings was with the Bucks. So when I went to, after getting cut by the Nuggets, that was a pretty daunting sort of thing. I was the first one to ride for my 10th game after signing my contract. My 10th game, we were about to play the Portland Trail Blazers. One of my mates was on the Blazers team, Big Kevin Duckworth. May he rest in peace. I was really looking forward to catching up with him. He's from the Chicago area as well. And Doug Moe, the coach of the team, and Pete Babcock, the general manager, came walking into the locker room. I'm the only one in the locker room getting dressed, trying to be the first one there, the last one leaving, And they had these forlorn looks on their faces, and they delivered those fateful words to me. Andre, we gotta let you go. And I was like, I'm like a 19, 20-year-old kid, man. Like, it cut really deep, But it also, I later on, in hindsight, I looked at it as, as a moment that made me stronger, as a person, So after they let me go, my one regret was I should have, I wish I'd have asked him, can I keep all my gear here? Can I keep my uniform on? Because this stuff is going to, this particular singlet is going to be one of the most popular throwbacks down the track. So may I keep this singlet? The skyline of the city of it, the one iconic singlet they had with the skyline of the city.
Yeah, the cityscape one, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm just joking. But at the moment, I thought about it down the track. I wish I'd have kept some of that gear. I think if I actually called or contacted the organization, they would probably be kind enough to give me some retro versions of that. After getting cut by Denver, when I got to Milwaukee, when they picked me up, I knew that was a temporary sort of situation because they had several of their power forwards and whatnot that were all on injured reserve, including Terry Cummings and Ricky Pierce and a couple other guys. So we knew it was just a temporary sort of, stay, And then what I did was I went down and played in CBA. I went over to Spain for a year. My agent got me a gig over in Spain. And, mind you, the Nuggets were paying me my contract out. They really, they really liked me to the point where they said, we're going to cut you, but we're going to let you, have your, the money in your contract. So I was able to take that and then go over to Spain, make it, a little bit more money over there, and have that, have that first overseas experience, which became a very good cultural sort of experience for me, which I really, really enjoyed. I played a year in Spain. Yeah.
I was going to say, you played the year in Spain, and then the language barrier, was that tough?
Yeah, well, that was the strange thing was all by chance. That was just pure, just coincidence. So I played the year in Spain, then I went to France the following year, and both of those places, like you just said, there was a language barrier, but not so much as in France. There was more English-speaking people in France that I was able to be involved with. So when I went back after France, I went back and played in the CBA in America, which is now the G League. And while I was playing in the CBA, the Bullets came over to look for a new import. Well, they already had their guard. They already had Rucker. They wanted the big guy who they had hurt. So they had a guy
because he debuted with you, but they'd already signed him up for the season. Is that right?
Right. So they would look at the big guy they were going to pair him up with was a guy they had heard about who was playing in the CBA as well. And my team was in town playing against this guy when they were over there watching them. Bullets were over there. Brian Curl and Dave Paxton, those guys were over there watching this guy play. My team was in town, and we flogged these guys. And we had a really good CBA team. We were coached by the great Henry Bibby, who's Mike Bibby. Remember Mike Bibby, Sacramento?
Yeah, of course.
His father. Yeah, and Henry Bibby played in the NBA as well too. He was an NBA veteran, played with Dr. J at Philadelphia and all that. So he was my coach. He put together a really good CBA team. So during that game, I was matched up with the guy that they were looking at, the Bullets were looking at, and then they turned their attention from him to me, and then they asked my coach after the game about my services. Would I be interested in coming over to Australia? So he comes in the locker room and says, "Man, there's some guys out in the lobby from a place called Brisbane, Australia." It's called the Brisbane.
Yeah.
And they're very interested in you. And I'm like, what, Australia? The place, you talking about the place with Crocodile Dundee? From that place? Yeah, I could not even imagine that they had hoops, and I'm thinking it's all Outbackish, I didn't know there was like proper cities and everything over here.
Yeah.
So I went and did my due diligence and went to my local library and got myself an atlas and looked this place up and read all the wonderful things about it. Decided I'll go over there for 1 year, and check it out. And we just happened to, I happened to walk into a great situation. Brisbane was a beautiful city, and we had, the iconic, legendary Leroy Loggins who was here, and Rucker turned out to be an MVP for the year. We just all gelled really well, even though we didn't win that championship. Ricky Grace, Amazing Grace, stopped us from winning the championship that particular year. We lost to them in that best of three series against versus Perth. But it was a great introduction to the league, nonetheless.
Another quick pause for the cause, gang. Appreciate you all listening and the support you send out after each and every show. But for those that don't know, when I'm not doing a podcast, I'm actually running a digital marketing agency called Multiply Digital. We do things a little bit differently there. We offer pay-per-performance marketing solutions. We like to think of ourselves as a digital marketing agency who are prepared to put their skin in the game. And that's something that you won't find easily. If we don't deliver on the sales or leads we agree on, then you don't pay. It's as simple as that. If you'd like to have a quick chat with me and discuss some of the ways we might be able to partner together, call us on 1300 856 745 or visit the website at multiplydigital.com.au today. So when you arrived in Australia and you're going up against guys like, you mentioned Derek Rucker and Leroy Loggins, but you had Robert Sibley there, Paul Rees.
Oh, you had a great Sibley.
Yeah, a number of great players there.
Yeah, some great players. Yeah. And then the play guys we went up against, Perth had the Alabama Slammer and all those type of guys. You got a young Mark Brackey coming through. We had some great. I was really impressed by the talent pool throughout the league and how well the league was running too as well. The National Basketball League. I was really impressed about how professional, the league was run. That was during the time when Hungry Jacks was just coming on board as well, as a sponsor.
Yeah.
So it was, we had some great television coverage, Channel 7 here in Brisbane, with Peter Mears, he was one of our great telecasters. He run some good stories on us as well. And Channel 10 came on later on and did a great job with the telecast. The league, just watch the league grow. We came in, but you have to give credit to Leroy. They were the era before us. Leroy, Cal Bruton, the aforementioned James Crawford, and those type of guys. They laid the foundation for when guys like myself and Rucker and Ricky Grace came over. Later on, the next wave of players. Those guys
right.
really. For the excitement, and then you guys like coaches, Coach Curl and Gorgon and those guys, who built so many names. I'm trying to Cal Bruin. He ended up being a coach. He was a coach when I came over here. Those guys were all legendary. Barry Barnes, was it Barry Barnes for Geelong? Coach Barnes.
Barry Barnes at Geelong, yeah, he was coaching Geelong at the time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the great Lindsey Gaze, those type of people were very instrumental in building this league. So I'm very, very impressed. And the league is starting to make a comeback now. I've been watching the NBL this year. Of course, congratulations to the Melbourne United for their grand final win. Perth was obviously missing a very, very important fabric. Namely cotton.
Slight omission there, yeah. So, but yeah, Perth did an amazing job to keep it as close as they did. Really, you lose your best player. You've got Mitch Norton was injured. They lost Travers and Clint Steindl at different points there. To see them to keep that competitive, that's nothing but a testament to Trevor Gleeson and then the structure of that club and the talent of the other guys on that team.
Just a classy organization all around Perth. You got to tip your hat off to them. I mean, just world from not just Australia-wide. They've been a standard of excellence for many, many years. What were we talking? How many straight years have they made the playoffs?
Yeah, when JC went there for the first time, so '86 I think was the first time that they made the playoffs, if I'm right, and then haven't missed one since, which is crazy.
That's crazy. That's crazy for any league, worldwide, America, anywhere, Europe, anywhere. That's a standard of excellence. It can't be, taken for granted. So the Perth Wildcats.
That's right. You arrived here in 1990, and that Brisbane Bullets team that you were on with Leroy Loggins and Derek Rucker was a pretty fantastic team too. But like I said, ran up against the Perth Wildcats. That was the first title for the Wildcats. They had to get past you guys to win it. They won back to back, and it really kicked off the dynasty and the successful franchise they are now. A lot of it was built upon the foundations of that team. What was it like going up against the 1990 Perth Wildcats?
No, it was pretty tough. We got Kendall Pender, the tiny Pender, was a beast to go up against. Just I think we were just as competitive as them as well too. They called us that third game. I'm not gonna give them total credit. We had a chance. We could have beat those guys. We did beat them. It was a 1-1 series was tied coming to Brisbane. Ricky graced us. He surprised us that third game with his he wasn't known as a shooter. He was just a distributor. And he, all of a sudden, became a really good shooter and scored.
Because if we look at the matchups
points.
before you go too much further, Dre, like you're matched up against James Crawford, I'm assuming, and then you got Ricky Grace matching up on Derek Rucker. Or are you playing on Kendall Pinder? Who was matched up on who?
I was on Pinder.
Okay.
We had Sibley kind of matched up with Crawford quite a bit. Yeah.
And then who's on Mike Ellis? Leroy?
Yeah, Leroy was kind of man in that.
Yeah.
You know, looking after that guy. Mike Ellis, he was a good player as well too. I think they might have had us a bit on depth wise. You know, their bench might have been.
Yeah, I think that's
fair
to say.
You know, we played myself, Leroy, and Rucker played some significant minutes throughout the whole season. You know, not saying that fatigue might have set in a little bit with us, but
all three of you guys were playing over like 44, 45 minutes a game, I think, back then. But that's what imports did, right?
Yeah, the games were 48 minutes back then, weren't they, too?
Yeah, 48 minutes back then. So it's like guys run up and down the court now for, in a 40-minute game. Here's you averaging, 45 minutes for of your playing time on your own.
That's right, yeah. So that was, it was a great battle. It was great rivalry. It still exists. I'm still, a Brisbane Bullet in through and through. I'm loving guys like Sobey and the big guy. Some of the talent they got. They're building up. Building this team around at this stage. Sobey was really it was a lot of fun watching him play this year, this past season. His energy was very contagious. So I wish him all the best.
It'll be interesting to see whether, he's had such an amazing year, and it's come off the back of that 2019 FIBA World Cup. He didn't really get a lot of opportunity there, and it just seems that on the back of that, he's just lifted his game to a whole nother level, and now he gets this opportunity to play in the Olympics with the Boomers, if he's one of the lucky ones selected. It'll be interesting to see if he's able to make the team.
That would be, yeah. I'm really rooting for. I'm hoping he will make that team as well. The big question is about whether, and I'm hoping Simmons decides to play. I would hate for him to miss.
He's already said no, Dre. There was a press release from Basketball Australia. I think it was about a day or two ago. But he won't play. But the Ben Simmons stuff. That series was pretty tough, and I think that had a bit of an impact there. And it sounds like from the comments in the media, he's got, like teammates and coaches kind of, Doc Rivers saying he really needs to put in some work this off-season. So, it's a shame he's not going to be a part of the team, but it makes sense since they're the guys paying you $40 million a year that you go back to the drawing board and start working on some of those things they're asking you to work on, I guess.
Right. But to represent your country, that's big. I thought it was would be a good way for him to to show the world, sort of work on some things and redeem himself a little bit from his postseason woes,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's up. Obviously, it's up to him and his camp. If they want to do. What are your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts. Well, yeah. It's. Yeah. The way I think about it is 100%. Like if I put it, my my hoops tragic hat on, then seeing the Boomers win a medal is something that I'm not even involved in, but it's something that I've wanted to see for a long time. And he obviously gives us a huge opportunity to do that. But at the same time, I put a post up on my own social media a couple of days ago because he's just received such the vitriol and the abuse that he's been delivered on social media is ridiculous. And to look at it from a point of view that the guy doesn't get paid from Basketball Australia. I'm sure he gets his meals covered and whatnot, but his paycheck comes from the Philadelphia 76ers, right? And if they're the ones turning around, if they're the ones that have sort of turned around, and to me, I think people sort of point at his development over the years and how there's been a little bit of a lack of it in certain areas, and to see people out there complaining about how he hasn't improved, but then at the one time, it's a tough time because we obviously want him to be here in the Grand and Gold, but to see the one time he turns around and say like, no, I'm really going to buckle down. I'm going to put some effort into these weaknesses. I want to become a great player. To have everyone turn around and deliver the backlash that they have, it was really surprising to me, especially because people don't realize things like, especially during COVID, like to work on individuals, to go out there, play for the Boomers, you might get say for 10 3-point shots at a maximum, which he's not going to be getting, but let's say, in some imaginary world that's the case. You're doing individuals, you're getting up hundreds of those shots.
Right.
To look at, he's had all year to work on that. It's not true. Like the NBA, especially in this COVID situation, so condensed. The guys don't get really a lot of time to work on stuff. And you'd know that from playing. Like it's training sometimes, is hard to do, or working on individual skills while you're playing an NBA season.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. But getting up shots though, and one I will say, getting up shots, threes in a practice environment as opposed to getting them up, in a high pressure environment, it's a bit different when the lights and cameras are on as well too,
That's true. I definitely agree that.
Yeah.
There's another thing that people probably overlook is he was coached by Brett Brown, and there's people there that say he's kind of been babied and things like that, and whether that's the case or not, who knows. But in the case where he hasn't really been forced to do a lot of this work, and he's been allowed to play the game he wants to his strengths instead of working on his weaknesses, and Doc Rivers has come in now and allowed him to do that somewhat again. Now from a Philadelphia 76ers standpoint, they have to be looking at this and saying, well, we've changed coaches to spur his development along. We've tried, getting in his ear and getting him to do things. And, there's even, Joel Embiid came out and kind of like hinted that they're, losing to the Hawks was because of it was down to Ben Simmons. For him to look at everything that's going on there and not think like, well, I really need to change the way that I prioritize things or I do things. It's it must be tough for someone who's getting that much pressure from the franchise and teammates and coaches to just turn around and say, well, look, you're right, I do need to work on these things, but I'll do it when I get back from the Boomers, when I would have not wasted, but I would have used up a good part of the off season. Yeah, and then we're thrown back into this NBA season again, where I've got hardly any time to work on it.
Right. Because I think it's a quick turnaround. The season's going to kick off again in October, right? The NBA
Correct.
season,
yeah, because COVID's changed things, particularly this year. Yeah, like they've only probably got 2, maybe 2.5 months until they're back on the court again.
Yeah, that's right. So have the Sixers are going to give him another go? Or?
Well, he's still contracted. He's contracted there for the next few years. So Joel Embiid is a free agent. So there's I have no doubt that they'll re-sign him. But I guess there's those questions that have to be answered there. And there's people out there that will say that Ben Simmons needs to be traded and all that type of thing. And there's every blogger and he is putting his 2 cents in where Ben Simmons would be a good fit. But you'd have to think from, you've been around more NBA teams than I have, Dre, but like to have a player like that, let's look at him even in his worst moment, which was in that series against the Atlanta Hawks. He's still playing at an all-star level caliber. He's defensively, the best perimeter defender out there. He's still locking down Trae Young to far below his average or what he was supposed to get. Like there's, it's not like he's going to have a lack of suitors out there, offering to trade pieces for him.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the way he handles that rock and coming downhill, man, it's still a sight to see, sight to behold.
Yeah, like you think about the things that you could do at your size and back in the day, and this guy's doing them from the point guard position. It's crazy.
Exactly. And I always think about how he would have been in the stands watching us play when I used to play against his dad. He would have been a young fellow sitting there, sitting in his mom's lap, watching us. a big oversized baby.
Hey everybody, hope you're enjoying this show. Appreciate all of you who take the time to like, share, comment, or reach out after every episode. The reason we continue producing these podcasts is because basketball in this country has such a rich history, a national league that goes back over 40 years. But when it comes to the stories, interviews, memories, heck, even player photos and footage of games is hard to come by, especially anything before 2010. Our goal is to create a community where the history of basketball in Australia is easily accessible, and the history of our league, as told by the players and coaches who were there, is something that even the youngest hoops tragic is able to find on the internet. At AussieHoopla.com, we've created a real community where you can gain access to information on any Australian who's ever played in the NBL. Our Australian basketball player database is at AussieHoopla.com, and you can find a profile there for every player who's ever played in the league, as well as all of their statistics from the NBA, tournament they played for the Australian Boomers, and their history of playing in the state league competitions all across Australia. If you'd like to be a part of the team and be involved in writing articles, posting social media posts, or even helping with the podcast, we'd love to have you as part of the team. Reach out to us at Aussie Hoopla on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and visit the Aussie Hoopla website, AussieHoopla.com, for everything you need on the history of Australian basketball. It's you played mostly sort of power forward during your time, and it's interesting that if you look at, you're talking about watching the Bullets and that these days, the NBL. If I was to pick out the position which is, provided the least focus these days, it's probably that power forward position. If you have a look at a lot of teams over the years, there's not a lot of imports that come in at that spot. Up until this season, we had guys who were like 36, 37 years old, like Vacona and Alex Loughton and all those guys playing those spots. It's kind of like that's the position that gets left till last when teams are putting their rosters together. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree with you totally. It's like a lost position. I'm sitting here trying to think of. So, Vacona. I love Vacona. I will say that one thing. His career. Congratulations to him on how his longevity, and love his work ethic and the way he played and all that. He was a guy I really kind of admired watching. Enjoy watching. But I can't think of any power forwards, from this past NBL season. Guys that can really fit that power forward sort of position.
Well, the only one I can think of, and he's only moved to power forward since they brought in Magnay, but is John Mooney, an import at the 4 spot. But besides that, and especially if we go back beyond this season and look at the ones before that, teams have relied on 33 plus Aussie talent to fill that spot. Which, if you look at every other position in the league,
I know one guy I like. I don't know if I can't really consider him a power forward, but the backup center for the Melbourne, the champion Melbourne. No, the big fella, the big African kid, Achul.
Oh, Joe Luel Chul. Yeah, hasn't he been good?
Cool. Yeah,
he's got to be on some. I know he's got some weaknesses and he's raw, but he's got to be looked at by NBA teams. You would think, surely.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. He got some handle, for a big fella. He runs the court really well. He's a good touch around the basket and all that.
Yeah, I look at him and I think that he's the type of guy teams in the NBA would love, because teams in the NBA aren't necessarily looking for someone that can do it all when you're talking about those bottom spots on the roster. They're looking at people who are very effective at one particular skill. And if you look at some of the things he can do on the offensive side of things, like that's him right to a T.
I know, yeah, I really like his game big time. And what's his age? How old is he now? I don't know much about his background. All that. Is he like mid-20s, or was he early 20s? Or
27. Yeah, he's only 27 years old.
Yeah, he still get a couple of years in the league. I'm sure it would have been tough. There's been a few scouts coming in and out of the country over the years, watching guys like Jessup and those guys.
Yeah, Giddy there this year, who was getting a few eyeballs. Obviously, LaMelo Ball and Hampton were last year. Even you had the NBL to NBA games where Melbourne United was playing against NBA teams. It surprises me that he doesn't get a little more NBA attention.
I know, exactly. It surprises me as well. I was looking at a mock draft the other day, too. They had Giddy going number somewhere around between 18 and 20, top 20, right?
Even higher than that. Like there's a couple of mock drafts that have come out over the last week, which have put him around 10th position. But I know firsthand that teams as high as 7 have been calling the 36ers to do their due diligence and ask them questions. So teams up until the 7th pick are showing interest in him. So you would say he's a very good chance to go in the lottery.
Yeah, he was a very talented young man. I really enjoyed watching him play as well. At Adelaide squad, like we talked about Daniel Johnson as well.
Johnson,
like his game.
yeah.
They
And you talked about Dave Simmons and the Tigers a bit earlier. He shoots a little bit further out than his old man, doesn't he, old Josh Giddey?
He does, yeah. Warwick, he's a bit better player than his dad was. His dad was a good player too. Yeah, very, very tough player.
Great player, great team.
He's got a lot better head of hair too than his dad too.
It'll be interesting to see. Like we're also talking about the Boomers before. Like he'd be a sneaky chance to. He's probably a 50-50 call to make the Boomers at this stage, which would be to think about. A year ago, Josh Giddey, 17-year-old, hadn't played an NBL game, and then 12 months later, he's coming off the bench for the Boomers in the Olympics. That's a huge development. Well, Dre, it's been awesome to talk to you, mate, and I'm so excited that at the ripe old age that you are, that you've finally got your own signature shoe, mate. It's I have no doubt Michael Jordan and the guys at Nike, they're probably a little bit wary right now, but there's another guy from Chicago with some flashy shoes. They need to be careful.
Yeah, right, man. Yeah, I'm in the game. Watch out, Mike. Watch out, MJ. I'm coming for you, man. I'm coming for your billion sales. That's right, man. I'm coming for his $1 billion sales.
So if you want to check that out, anyone who's listening, Basilica Shoes, that's BASILICA shoes.com. You can check them out. And if you check out Big Feet Basketball, you can also check out everything else that Andre is doing in the community. Dre, it's been awesome to talk hoops with you and shoot the breeze. Wish you all the best and hope we catch up again soon.
Oh, Dan, I really appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. And everybody out there listening, man, take care and God bless y'all. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Aussie Hoopla. I hope you enjoyed the show. No doubt you heard a few shout-outs to companies who help us to produce the program, and without them, in all honesty, we wouldn't be able to continue producing these shows like we do. Costs for overseas calls, for interviews, hosting the website and podcasts, it all adds up, and to be honest, there's thousands that we spend each year, and without these guys on board, we wouldn't be able to keep bringing you the interviews that we do. So if you get a chance to support the companies who support Aussie Hoopla, that'll go a long way to helping us continue doing what we do. Alternatively, if you have a product, a service, a business or side hustle that you think the listeners of this show would be interested in, reach out to me at AussieHoopla.com on all social media channels, and perhaps we can promote what you're doing on the show as well. There's more than 25,000 people who listen to our podcast or visit the Aussie Hoopla website each month, which is more than most NBL teams get to games or have as social media followers. It's mostly males between 25 and 55, so it's a great demographic to promote what you're doing. As mentioned earlier, I'm always happy to talk with people about joining the Aussie Hoopla team. We've got a great little group. Some write articles for the site, some edit the articles, plenty post updates on our social media accounts or help with graphic design, and many use what we're doing as a way to get their foot into working with NBL teams. I can proudly say that multiple NBL teams have hired people as part of their marketing team after they honed their craft at AussieHoopla.com, and we're only too happy to help those who are keen to do that get there. Also, don't forget, in our back catalogue, we've got interviews with every big name in Aussie Hoops history. Andrew Bogut, Luke Longley, Andrew Gaze, Matthew Dellavedova, Shane Hill, Leroy Loggins, Ricky Grace, Mark Brakey, Andrew Vlahov, and plenty of others have all joined us to talk about their careers and to give their take on the game today. Check out those past interviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or however you listen to your podcasts. Another episode done and dusted. I hope you enjoyed it. Reach out and let me know your thoughts if you get time. And finally, be sure to keep hooping, support the NBL, and continue to listen to Aussie Hoopla.